Hi. About once a year, I try to go home to Maine, which is where I grew up. I'm from Maine originally. And I find that I need my fix of Maine just to be on an even keel. It helps my equilibrium in general. So last year I went home in early October, and this year I went home in early November. And I wasn't really sure if I was going to make a video or just focus on just taking pictures. So the first 2 days I didn't really shoot much video. And then I thought, you know what, I do want to do video. So I started shooting some video. Just talking about my process and what I'm thinking about when I'm trying to make photographs in Acadia. It's a time of year when people don't go that often. The crowds really are gone once the leaves are gone. A lot of the shops are closed up for the year, and it's an aspect of the island that I really remember growing up there, but that doesn't necessarily get photographed as much. So I thought that was a really kind of a cool way to focus on is what do you shoot when people aren't normally shooting? And the weather was all over the place. It was 65 and rainy one day, and then like 30 and cloudy, and 30 and like perfectly clear. So a whole gamut of different kind of conditions. I got some pictures that I've never gotten before in terms of just like the light and the style. But because I didn't start shooting video, this is a little uneven. The later days are more covered than the first day. The first day, I got off the plane in Bangor at around noon and drove with my dad to the island, and then we went up to the top of Cadillac. And that was around 2 in the afternoon at Cadillac Mountain. Super windy, and I mean to the point where trying to hold the camera steady with these gusts of wind that feel like they're gonna blow me over. I would be crouched down at a rock trying to brace in like multiple positions. And then I would stand up and like almost get taken down. But the light I thought was really cool. Very overcast, but like little bits of sun coming down through those shots. That was a blast. And then I went to get sunset at Bass Harbor Headlight. I didn't think I'd be there long enough for sunset to hit because I had to be home in time for a family Zoom at 5. But I forgot the sun goes down at like 4:15. So yeah, I was there for sunset. The clouds were heavy enough that the sun never really poked through, but I got also some very cool dramatic shots of Bass Harbor Headlight. I tried with a neutral density filter. I did like a 7-minute exposure, but the longer I made the exposure, the lower the sun got, and it kept getting darker, and those didn't come out as well. But I did get a pretty good one of just I think it was a 30-second exposure. So I don't get the trails of the clouds, but I get all the texture of the storm clouds. And then the next day I went out to Jordan Pond to get some of the just forest stuff. And I thought it was really cloudy and overcast. That would be a perfect day to get out there and try my polarizing filter to kind of cut some of the glare and really bring out the colors. And so we went to Jordan Pond and followed the carriage road up along the shore, up past the rock slide, and then to Deer Brook Bridge, and slipped and slid all over the rocks trying to get good shots up the stream. Got some of my favorite woodland shots that I've ever gotten because it was such overcast fog and stuff, and because it had been raining, the brook was really running, so it was just perfect. And I didn't miss the leaves at all. There's lots of evergreen trees that make up for any of the fallen leaves. So it was really fun. And then at that point I started shooting video, and I actually started talking on the video the next day on the beehive. So I'll let myself sort of handle that from there. But I hope you enjoy it. It's just a little bit of kind of the process of shooting landscape photos in Acadia at a time when maybe not as many photographers are out. Morning folks, from my second full day, or the beginning of my second full day in Maine in November. It is the 13th of November, so last year I came up right at the beginning of October and the leaves hadn't turned, and now they're all gone. But you know what else is gone? Is the tourists. So that's been kind of awesome. Yesterday was really rainy and I got some pretty cool woodland photography, looking at streams and stuff with all the runoff. That was neat. Now I'm on top of the Beehive, which is one of the more popular hikes in Acadia. During the summer, if you're down on Sand Beach, and I'll show you that in a second, you can see a line of people snaking up the mountain, which is kind of funny because it's not like Disney World. You could actually you can fall and die. People don't generally because they're being careful, but you see them doing it in flip-flops and stuff. So I'm up here, sunrise. There's not much of a sunrise today, pretty cloudy. And I'm just getting all the kind of scenes around. Since I'm doing landscapes, keeping around f13, f16, and using my tripod and adjusting the shutter speed as necessary. One of the things I've been playing with on this trip is my polarizing filter, which was more effective than I thought it was going to be yesterday with those pictures of the streams. And with all the fallen leaves and moss and stuff in the mist, they were actually reflecting a lot of light, so making glare on them, and turning on the polarizer, or not turning on, but just twisting it the right way, cut that glare and just made the colors really, really rich, which was very cool. So that was fun. I think now we're going to go on to the other side and see what's coming up, what's happening on the western side of the mountain. That should be fun. All right, this is actually cooler than I thought it was going to be. All the clouds rolling over the mountains and the different layers of hills and stuff should yield some really cool compositions. So let's try and get some good pictures. I think I'm going to stay at f13. That seems to be working pretty well for me, but I'm going to switch cameras to the tripod so I have a little bit more control because it's still not very bright. So my shutter speed is still around 1 second a lot of the time. Luckily the wind isn't blowing too bad like it was the last couple of days, so hopefully the trees won't be moving too much. If the trees are moving, like the branches blowing in the wind, I'll just have to turn up the ISO and the shutter speed to compensate. Very cool. Well, that's 10 minutes of my life I'll never get back. It didn't really work. The first one I did five minutes at like f16, I think, and it was too dark. So then I dropped it down to f11, did 5 and a little bit more, and the exposure came out okay. But I think the issue is that there's not enough definition. The mist just turns into cloud up above. What we need is like trails going through, like some of the stuff you see in San Francisco. And maybe a wider composition, more area for it to cover, because it turned into, well, yeah, you can see it. It's not awful, but it wasn't really worth a 10-minute exposure, 2 5-minute exposures. Let's keep moving. And I think once we get down, we'll go see Thunder Hole, because there was Hurricane Nicole a couple of days ago in the south, which didn't hit here. But when there is a hurricane, usually that makes bigger surf, and the waves look pretty big. So maybe Thunder Hole will reward us. Most of the time when I go, it's just kind of burping. But every once in a while, you get really big waves, and that's pretty neat. So like I said, when we were up on the Beehive, maybe we'd hit Thunder Hole, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. Generally, when it's best, we get the sign saying closed, unsafe conditions, because the waves, the waves are really going up. So I've been doing a series of pictures here, some of them at 1/500th of a second at ISO 800 and f4, trying to freeze the motion and using a fast, like the fast release, like 10 frames a second. And then I switch to longer exposures at f/16, ISO 64, around a second or two with a timer on it and going off multiple shots to get more of the trails of the water and stuff. They could be both pretty dramatic in different ways. We'll have to see which ones work best. It's pretty cool here. Morning folks, I'm at Seal Cove Pond, which I tried to shoot last fall. I got a couple of good shots in October, but there was one shot, which I'll show you in a second, that just didn't quite work because I got here a little bit too late in the morning and the sun was too high over those trees to that side. And so it was overwhelming the composition. It wasn't filtered by any clouds, it wasn't filtered by any trees, and I couldn't reconcile the highlights with the shadows. So no matter what I tried to do, I did all these fancy selections and stuff, it just didn't really come out. So I thought today I would try that again and see if I can get it any better. There's also some pretty cool shots that I might be able to get at 120 millimeters down there if I go along the water and sort of get some other angles. We'll play with all that kind of stuff. It's now almost 6:30 in the morning. The sun is rising any second now, and you can see it kind of hitting the clouds in some cool ways, but it's not over the mountaintop yet. So we have to wait a little while for the full sunrise to hit us. And we are right by the side of the road. So this one is super easy to get to on the backside. So we're actually getting some pretty cool color in the clouds now that the light is starting to hit the clouds, but it's not over the mountaintop. We'll see what else we can get. So this is Bass Harbor Headlight, which is probably one of the most cliched photography spots on the island because it's, as you can see, kind of spectacular and easy to get to. You drive right up and you just go down some stairs, as you saw, and you're there. So people here all the time. There's a couple of people over there, but it's Monday evening in the middle of November, so the crowds are pretty light. I've been here twice on this trip. I came the very first night, and there was another dude with a big tripod who'd driven up from Saco, which is like 3 hours away, just to photograph the lighthouse. And there were a bunch of people scattered across the rocks. I was kind of shocked because it was November, but it was Veterans Day weekend in the beginning of it, so I guess that made some sense. This is more like what I expected. It's in the 30s, so it's cold, nobody's here. The clouds look pretty much perfect for what I want, so I'm hoping that I'll get a really good sunset picture. I got some pretty dramatic stuff on that the other night, but there was no color because there was so much clouds. So I'm hoping that I'll get some really good color on this one. What surprised me is the last time I was here for sunset was summer. It was in June or July, and the sun set behind the lighthouse. And now it's off that way, which is far more to the south than I expected. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm gonna take some pictures and hope I don't freeze while I'm out here. And we'll see if they come out. You can see some of last night to today, and there's going to be differences in terms of the clouds, but also the tide. The tide is much higher today than it was on Friday night. So fun stuff. Morning, everybody. This is my final morning in Acadia. I'm actually flying out to Illinois in a couple of hours, but I'm down here at Boulder Beach, which I finally know the difference between Boulder Beach and Monument Cove. Monument Cove is further that way. I've actually photographed Monument Cove before years ago, but I've never been to Boulder Beach before. This is actually easier to get to. But I'm here for sunrise, which is in just a couple of minutes, and I thought I would frame it up with the cliffs behind me. I'll probably zoom in a little bit. That's why I'm kind of sitting back further up the beach, and I'm going to zoom in to make the cliffs look bigger. I could also get out a really wide angle lens and get down close to focus on these really cool cobblestones, the rocks, the boulders, hence the name Boulder Beach. But I think balancing the two is going to work really well. But I've got my Z6 also here, so while I've got my Z7 on the tripod with the 24-120, I may get some kind of other shots with the Z6 handheld. With the 14 to 30 millimeters. So we'll get some pretty stuff. It is gorgeous out today. It doesn't get any better than this. Sorry, no, that's probably really shouldn't be my catch line. I think that's taken. But yeah, it doesn't get much better than this. So yeah, cool. Let's see what we get. Let's just see what we get. Well, I think that's just about going to wrap it up for this trip. I have to get back to the house and pack up my stuff and get on the plane to Chicago. This has been a really good couple of days. Lots of different weather patterns. When I got here it was 65 degrees. Now it's about 30 degrees from Friday to Tuesday. Got some fog, got some clouds, got some rain, got some all kinds of stuff. So I am really happy with how this came out. Feel nice and recharged, ready to go back to school. It's gonna be good stuff. So, I was trying to wrap up in some words of wisdom or something to like tie it all together, but I haven't even seen what I've been talking about because I've just been running around getting as much stuff as I can. So maybe I'll sit back in the studio and think of some way to tie it together. But I think the main thing is get out and shoot the things that you really like. And also don't be deterred by bad weather, because that's when people don't go out, and that's when you're gonna get the shots that other people don't get. So, or not as many people get. I mean, you're more likely to get interesting stuff too. It's gonna be dramatic. Today is about as peaceful and beautiful as you could possibly ask for. So it's a really nice way to wind down my visit to Maine on just about the perfect note. And it looks like a good day to fly too. It's not windy, not cloudy, not rainy. Who could ask for anything more? Yeah. Okay. Until next time.